And we are live. What's going on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube Live? It is your man, Coach Rowe. Today is Tuesday. I'd like to welcome you to another session of the Men's Circle. Man, I feel like these 2 weeks, like bi-weekly, it's just blowing by. It's like every time I look up, it's another Men's Circle, which actually is always right on time, right when the steam's running down a little bit. Bam, re-up. But I'd like to welcome you to the Men's Circle. We're going to jump straight into it tonight because we got a lot of ground to cover with this particular topic. The topic is going to be tonight leading the vision. For me, one of the major things of manhood is really being able to impart vision into the people who are trusting you to be their leader, especially if you're a husband, boyfriend, a son, in any capacity, a business owner or a person in business. The need for leaders of vision, or visionary leaders, I guess I should say, the need for visionary leaders is just astounding. We'll just say that. But tonight I have 4 people on the panel with us. There were supposed to be some more, but unfortunately schedules didn't align. We might have one more person joining us later this evening, but for now we got the 4 that we have. And it really never matters to me how many we have, just as long as we have a good conversation. That's all that I ever care about. But let's jump into it really quick. I'll have you gentlemen introduce yourselves. We got everybody's a familiar face at this point. I like that. But if you could, I'll do it from my left and then go around in a box. Tim, you're up first.
Yeah, Tim Rushing. Been on a few of these, and like Billy, you couldn't have said it better. These always seem to come at the right time, right when it's like the Sims game, right when the energy level gets a little bit low. You just feed the sim. That's kind of what this is. Always love getting everybody's perspective. Me and Billy go back. I said many times, I don't have a memory that doesn't involve Billy. We go back that far. Truly a brother, by more than blood, obviously. And I'm always very humbled to be asked to come on to this. And I'm always come away with some major takeaways. And man, really impacted some of my relationships in my personal life, some of the things that we had in a very, very positive way. But yeah, I'm a supervisor with a major insurance company, let's say. I don't know how they would feel about this. Don't think they would care, but just to be safe, I deal with people all day long, helping guide, mentor, develop, train individuals. So really seen this and was earmarking it on my calendar. But that's enough about me. I'll go ahead and pass it on.
I'm guessing that's me because it's down, right? I was like, that isn't really love. But anyway, Jeremiah Ramirez. So obviously I'm here because of Mr. Billy Rowe, doing a great job, phenomenal, right? This is a space where men get a chance to be open, be honest. We're having these conversations. I'm here by way of Glenn Davis, who is to my right in this screen, invited me and said, hey, man, this is a great circle of guys, like the topics that we're discussing tonight. You don't find these type of discussions any and everywhere. So always blessed to be here. I am an entrepreneur on my own financial agency. We're blessed to be doing that for about 4.5 years now. And so that's what I'm into, but blessing to be here. Thank you guys for having me.
It's good to have you back, Rico. And then I see you, Glenn. You definitely last but not least.
I appreciate it. First and foremost, man, happy to be here amongst other men who cast vision, are very valuable in their industries. And yeah, my name is Glenn Davis, out here in Cali, enjoying this California weather this evening. I've had the opportunity of coming on the men's circle, man, and has provided a lot of value, on the call and even continuing on off the call, just being able to elaborate on the conversations with the family and just kind of challenging me as a man, as a leader of the home, to staying true to my word and take some of the lessons learned from this platform and execute them and instill them into my other young men that I'm leading within my home. So very grateful for the opportunity. Looking forward to this. I'm in the financial industry as well. One of the regional directors, partner of Jeremiah Ramirez. Grateful to be in business with like-minded individuals who strive to provide value to folks. And that's me.
I love it. I love it all. I love actually how each of you have your uh, different but the same areas of leadership when it comes to leading people. Entrepreneurship, supervisors, managers, it doesn't really matter. It's just those are positions in which having a vision and understanding where you're trying to get people to um, is crucial. Um, and as always, I'm Billy Rowe, Coach Rowe. Let's get started. I always love to start off the conversation as what in the area of what the topic means to each of us. For me, vision is something that has always been second nature. And I didn't realize it until I was having a conversation with my mother once. And that I really did. Then I understood it once I purchased my first home. I remember my mom was telling me, like, Billy, anytime you say you're going to do something, you do it. And you don't spend a lot of time waiting to do it. And I never noticed that about myself until my mother and I were having this conversation. But she was spot on in the aspect of when I see something that I want to do, when I say there's something that I want to do, I get started. There's very little lag time unless I need to set something up specifically. I get started. And I remember when 2012, I had moved back in with my mother for a short term because I was going to be moving out of Sacramento, and then plans didn't go the way that they were supposed to go. So I ended up staying in Sacramento. And I remember at that time having the conversation with my mother, like, hey, we're going to be out of here in about 6 months. Like, we're going to be leaving the house in 6 months. If we were going to go on rent, we would just leave now. But because we want to buy a home, we're going to leave the house in 6 months. And I remember my mom telling me, hey, you're probably going to take longer than 6 months to find a house. And she was actually right, but she was only right by like 6 days. Like, it was 6 months and 6 days to get a house, like to close escrow and move in. Um, so when I think about like this topic, leading the vision, I think about those times in my life where the vision has been instilled in me, and it's been my responsibility and my charge to disseminate that vision in a manner in which the people that I love, care about, and support me, and I support, um, could get behind that vision and get on board with that vision. So that's really what this topic, leading the vision, means for me. I'll let anybody who wants to jump in from there jump in.
I'll just say a couple things. One, I remember that time in your life, and I remember, and I will say, there's a lot of gray in your beard. 90% of it is from that 6 to 8 months that you were doing that. Which is going to play into the vision thing is the work. What work are you willing to put in to any vision? And my God, man, you worked from like 6 a.m. to like 2:33 in the morning just to redo it all again. You worked. I remember having a conversation worried about you, and you were like, "Hey, man, I got an end goal. I got a finish line I'm shooting for. I could do it. I can make it." And you did, which kind of goes to that backdrop that you gave that your mom told you, which she wasn't lying. Um, but I think the components to me with the vision is all about having. You got to find the why for people and for yourself. You got to find what's in it for you, what's in it for them, and then you got to find, okay, what's the macro, what's the end game, and then what's the micro, what's the steps that lead to it. And once you're able to get that in line, good things tend to happen. But it's all about having reasonable amount of work that you know that you can do and willing to do. not things that you're going to set yourself up for failure by not being able to fulfill, which always takes a lot. There's a calibration piece that goes into that too. But I'm sure we'll get into a lot more of this. But I'll go ahead and defer it to the next person.
Rico, you talking?
You're on mute. I do that all the time.
You're on mute, Rico. There you go. Now you're not on mute. I think. Nah, there you go. Rico, did you have something you were saying?
No, I was just saying, go ahead, Glenn. I can follow up with Glenn. I don't want to stop him from speaking.
Oh, go ahead, Glenn.
So regarding the leading the vision, I think oftentimes you'll hear people talk about vision, or you'll hear people talking about leading, but you never really hear them talking about leading the vision. And so I look forward to kind of unwrapping the conversation on leading the vision, because these are two key components that people often talk about, but they don't blend them together. And so, obviously, if you're leading your family, if you're leading a group of people, if you're leading, businesses, different things like that, it all blends well into this. And I think that, if folks are watching, I think you guys are about to give them some gems on leadership and vision. So I'm grateful to be here, man.
You guys hear me?
Gotcha, Rico. Yep.
Okay, perfect. For me, it's actually funny that when you say leading the vision, maybe you're trying to. In a lot of cases, people are leading someone that doesn't share the same vision, right? So something that's with me, and this is something Glenn's heard me say it, but these are something that for whenever I'm looking to partner with anybody or looking to have a partnership with anyone, business or personal relationships, their value and their vision, right? Or vision and value, whichever way you want to do it. But number one, I have to know, does their vision align to my vision, right? And do their values or moral compass, does that align to who I am as a person? And so I think in a lot of times people may read this and they're saying, oh, I'm leading the vision of a group of people. No matter what's going on, I'm leading them, right? My vision's leading them. But the problem is that people don't align to that vision. I don't know. I think you'll be working, vainlessly. So that's kind of what I think. That's when I think about that, I'm like, man, maybe people are leading people that don't share the same vision. You got to be aligned.
Right. No, I think that's a great point. I actually want to back up to the point, Glenn, you were making about leading the vision in the aspect of, it's almost like when people think, you get married and that's the end, like that's the finish line, right? And so all the effort that you've taken to get to that point ceases. And then quickly the marriage deteriorates and goes backwards towards boyfriend and girlfriend to perfect strangers to I don't even talk to you no more. But I, when you said leading the vision, and when I heard you say it, all of a sudden it gave me a new definition of continuing the vision. So almost like leading up to marriage, I get marriage and then I continue to grow and climb from that point. It's almost like in our vision, we are charged with acquiring the vision. We acquire the vision, but we don't sit there and hold it in a box and say, look at that vision right there. Oh, I'm gonna show y'all my vision, and then I'm gonna close it back up in the box. Our job is to continue that vision and to lead that vision. But I do agree with you, Rico, that it is very important to understand um, alignment when you are leading others in your vision. Glenn and I actually, the men's circle is a very good example of that, where Glenn and I had a conversation and was like, yo, I feel like this is our time to be connected on this level. I have this idea. I want to run it by you and see if you want to rock with me on it, or if you think it's a great idea, or if it's not, then it's still the idea that I have. I still have the vision for it, but maybe that's not the person who is supposed to be along on that journey. But he's brought in other quality people into this vision because of the fact that he and I were able to gain that alignment. So you're spot on, because Tim will tell you my vision for my overall life, like the success of my life, the goals that I have for my life. In many ways, while I lived in California, my vision for myself was hindered. It was it was handicapped, we'll say. So um, there were there were times where it was like, man, I feel like I should be here and I'm still not there. What do I need to learn to get there? And I've now lived in Utah 5.5 years. Um, and a lot of people who know me, they're like, man, you moved to Utah and like rocket ship took off. And it was because I removed myself from a space that was creating drag on my vision. And I remember having a conversation with my wife, and she was like, we're talking about finances and what our retirement goals are and stuff like that. And I'm like, hey, my plan is to buy real estate and pay off some houses and have, income coming in from those houses. That's my plan. And she was like, well, how many do you think you want? I said 5 to 10 houses. And she was like, oh, okay. And then all of a sudden, because that vision was imparted in my wife and she just was in alignment with it, boom, we just closed escrow 11 days ago on another property. And so it's like that stuff is happening and it feels like it's happening effortlessly, but it feels that way because there's no drag on the vision. And because I'm clear about what the vision is, my wife now comes to me, she's like, hey babe, do you want to look at these properties, or did you look at that property? Our real estate agent sends us stuff and he's like, hey, this is a property, here's the analysis that I've done on it. This is what the cash flow could be. This is where you'd break even at. Here's what rents are in the area. So now those conversations that need to take place are happening without me going out and saying, let me go and get a realtor who I can tap on and say, hey, I need you to send me investment properties. I need you to send me investment properties. Now my realtor is in a space where when he hears of opportunities that he knows would either be good for myself or good for my business, he's like, hey, you might want to look at this opportunity. Let me know what you think. If you like it, great. If you don't, then we move on and we'll find something else. We'll keep looking. But that happens when you're in a space where you don't just look at your vision as the finish line. If I'd have looked at my vision as the finish line, I'd have got one house and said, whew, I did it. I did it. And then I just sit there in the one house. But because I understand that first house purchase was just the stepping stone to the next one and the next one and the next one and the next one. So when you said that, Glenn, in regards to, I heard acquire the vision and continue the vision. And Rico, absolutely remove all drag that you can from the vision.
I like that you said that because I had a conversation recently this week, very similar to the topic of vision, and it was more along the lines of uh, just kind of posing the question, like, why do people limit their vision, right? Like they'll cast a vision. So, for example, they'll just look at the finish line. Hey, the goal is just to get one house. When in terms, the opportunity may be there for you to have 4, 5, 6 houses or whatever you fill in the blank. And I think that especially as men, with us being in positions of leadership across the spectrums, one of the things that we have to continue to challenge ourselves to not do is limit our vision. And so when you said that, that kind of just sparked the idea. I just wanted to share that, man.
I really like that. What would jump to my mind immediately is adjusting the vision and progressing with the vision, because think of it like, even if you do by the very literal sense of vision, right? As you get closer to something, the scope of it changes and more opens up. What once looked like it was only so much begins to expand, and you could actually go more. So I think when to have that calibration on your vision and to adjust as time goes on to, you know, was it too aggressive? Was it not aggressive enough? Is there more to be had? And what is the changes? Even like something like this, like this channel that we're on now. this has been an adaptation over time with the adjustment of an overall vision and arc. And the adaptation and the adjustment to what is going on is very, very critical when you're talking about the vision, because sometimes we could have people, some problems could be that you're either not as committed as you should have been to what your vision was, or you're married to it too much and you don't know when to part ways or adjust, because it's one of those things where I'm going down with the sinking ship because it was my call. Well, no, you don't. You could adjust. There's life preservers. There's whatever those ships that are attached to the side of the boat. You could adjust. So hearing that has really kind of sparked my mind as far as being able to adapt, and taking just the cues of what everybody said. Again, another gem being dropped, as Glenn mentioned earlier.
I would ask, what do you do with the disbelief? Because I hear that adaptation, like being able to be agile and adapt to the situation as it unfolds, as your vision unfolds. But what do you do with the disbelief? Because I believe that that can be a significant opponent to leading vision, because at all times we're attached to the present. And so in the present, I can go back 5 years. In 5 years ago, in the present 5 years ago, my credit score was bad. My income wasn't where it is now. I had a lot of obstacles that I had a lot of ships that I needed to right in order to get to the place where I am now. It reminds me of the conversation I had with Sean when he was saying how he was like, "Oh, Billy, you've never had you never had any bad credit. You've always paid your bills on time." And I was just like, yo, I don't know what life you've been living for me, but that ain't the one that I've been living for me. Like, I've had some significant past dues, closed accounts, write-offs, collectors. I've had it all. So, I mean, I've even come outside one time and my car was gone because they was like, yo, if you ain't gonna pay this joint, we gonna take it back. So I've had those experiences, but that was my present experience. And in that present experience at that time, it's really hard to see yourself buying multiple properties because it's like I'm struggling to pay the mortgage that I have. I'm struggling to pay the car note that I have. And that can be deflating when it comes to the vision. It can be toxic and corrosive to vision. Um, but what do you do with that disbelief? How do you overcome that present moment with the aspirations towards brighter futures?
I mean, for me, can you guys hear me? Okay. Uh, it's funny because there's always self-limiting beliefs, no matter what level it is that you ascend to. There'll always be self-limiting beliefs, right? Because with new levels, new devils. But when you actually sit down and learn to be self-reflective and work upon yourself, you can start to recognize those disbeliefs sooner than later, right? And so as you grow and you mature, you start to notice things as they come into your mindset, and you're like, okay, this is not going to be conducive to me progressing in my mentality. So I'm going to have to spot this, compartmentalize it, right? Like admit to it, say that it's there. Like, yes, it's real, it's here, but I'm going to compartmentalize it and understand that that's not going to get me to fully manifest what it is that I'm trying to manifest, right? And if you've done anything in business and you've had any type of success, you manifested something, right? There was a goal. And so the way you kill the disbelief is to get back to the fundamentals and figure out what were the steps necessary, or what was the standard operating procedure for me, right, to manifest what I manifested. I internalized it, or the idea came to my mind, right, and then I internalized it in my spirit. I believed it in my spirit, right. Then I wrote it down on a piece of paper, and maybe you have a vision board, or you spoke it, then you put it down on a piece of paper. Whatever your right process is, it's getting back to that, getting like, and getting on to doing that again, and then getting yourself back into the thought process of being successful. Because I mean, self-doubt will always be there, but like I said, don't run from it or say it doesn't exist. Of course it exists. We were reading a book in one of our other group. It's Winning by Tim Grover, And it's talking about, and it talks about Kobe, and Kobe admits, he's like, yeah, there's days I just didn't want to play. There were days that I was like, man, this isn't it. I'm not feeling right. But it's like addressing that, compartmentalize those feelings. I'm not going to capitulate them, right? I'm actually going to just move past that. So I think for me, that's what you have to do. You have to admit it, agree that they're there, but understand that you had a process to get to wherever it is that you are, right? Because you're so much further than where you started. So what is that process? Get back to that process and then keep it moving.
I think it's in addition to that, I think it's also as you're running towards whatever it is that you're running towards. Uh, I think that it's important to take a knee, right? And I think that's something as men that we don't do enough. Like we're just constantly running and running and running, and then we continue running in circles to where that when you take that knee, I think it requires you to do that self-assessment. It requires you to check your oxygen mask. It requires you to to go back to the drawing boards, like Rico was saying, and reassess and make some adjustments, and or find a community of men that can run at that pace with you and or keep you going with that momentum. And so that's something that this last year I've recognized that something that I've always done is just kept running. Now, thankfully, because I've had a great community of men alongside of me, my oxygen mask was pretty full for majority of the time. But realistically, just as an individual, as a man, as a leader, I still had to recognize that I still had to pause for a moment and take a knee, right? Because I needed to, while continuing with that direction, I felt like I was still going in that straight path. Well, in some aspect, I was actually kind of veering off a little bit to the left, right? And so it required me to take a knee to self-assess, to readjust those angles, so that I can keep moving forward. And so, like I said, with that, as you're continuing to run, it's important to find that position and kneel down so that you can kind of regroup, so that you can keep going towards that big picture vision.
I'll piggyback off what you just said, Glenn, because I feel like I unlocked something unknowingly a few years back, that's really helped me in my life. And it's helped me in, I would say, 3 of the 4 quadrants of my life. It's helped me with my family, it's helped me with my career, it's helped me in my marriage, and it's going to start working for me financially. And what that is the initial question, Ro, which is what does a being agile mean and all that? Well, I think what it means is this. I think you have to, what I realize about myself is, in the reason why visions in the past really failed for me is I was too hard on myself. I didn't have the understanding to reflect, like you said, Glenn, on, because we come up with these ideas, and at least I did. You come up with these ideas and you come up with these visions, but you really have no idea what obstacles are in the way until you start trying to navigate and work towards that vision. So when you get those obstacles, as opposed to what I used to do in the past, which was uses it as an excuse. I'll be what real can call it what it is. Use it as an excuse of why I'm not reaching the vision that I set forth. I flipped that a little bit. And what I did is I used it as more, I took the emotion out of it, used it as more of a logical step and say, okay, so I got to this, I had this as a vision, as a goal, as a long-term goal. But when I said it, I didn't really fully understand what I needed. And then would I take those obstacles and I add them as steps as far as my micro to my macro. That way, it's okay. I didn't know that I was gonna have to work to this, but now I'll work to this, and then I'll get to that next stage. And slowly but surely, as long as I keep my legs churning, I will arrive. And once I arrive, I got to get comfortable with there's no finish line, punting that finish line out and keep going some more until you get further and further and further. That way, when you look back, you see how far you've actually come and how you've inspired your kids, your wife, your coworkers, your business partners, your the men in your life that are colleagues, your friends, all that. So that's something that I feel like I unlocked a couple years back, and it's really, really helped. Uh, it's really helped me in my life. Now I need to turn that into the financial, which it's funny because I look at me and Billy have a lot in common. Billy's actually his execution of his financial plan is inspiring and continues to inspire. Weaker minds would be uh, envious, but when I see that he was actually able to put it together and make it work, I'm like, I feel like I can do that. I just had some other things that came up in the way that I have to attend to first, but those wheels are turning towards that. So I think learning how to take the obstacles as opportunities as opposed to pitfalls, that's the once you figure that out, everything else kind of goes by the wayside.
Yeah, I love that take a knee aspect as well. Um, because Tim, like Tim said, when I went for my vision, it was like, yo, I'm not gonna get any sleep. And it's though I wasn't there yet in my life to understand that I was missing out on some things that were actually important to me. It was like, I got to get a house, I got to do this, I got to do that. So I mean, I'm waking up at 6 o'clock in the morning, going to work, and then taking an hour commute to go to be a server at Applebee's for until 2 o'clock in the morning, and then going to sleep and starting again. And then I don't have to work at Applebee's, but I got to drive Lyft tonight. Like, it was just, things were always to and fro. And so by the time I'd get to like one of my child's birthday parties, I'm asleep at the party because I don't have any energy. And so understanding that desire to take a knee and allow the body to rest so that you don't arrive to the touching your finger on the finish line and now you don't have anything else to give. You can't even punt the finish line because you've given so much into just getting there that you're it's almost like an all for naught situation. And I learned that, we talk about the evolution of like the first row. I learned that as I was building brick by brick the first row, starting off with just random videos and then moving into, okay, let's do this every Wednesday. And I got to a point in 2021 where when I said, okay, I'm going to write a book, I had to take a knee on the things that were that I loved about the first row, but I had to take a knee on them in order to execute the writing for the book. And so I took almost a whole year off from doing content, but I wasn't not doing content. I was building another plateau or another level of the first row, because it's one thing to be able to say, hey, you can go back and catch this video. Hey, you can go back and catch this video. It's a completely different thing to say, hey, here's a book, here's a journal, read this, write in this, read this, write in this, and keep doing that back and forth. And that is going to teach you the cadence of building bricks. And then you'll be able to build your own house of bricks, not straw, not sticks, but bricks. And so that take a knee aspect was something that was hard for me to learn. But in looking back, where I think I learned it most significantly was the times that I missed with my family because I was so exhausted chasing after a vision. I can't remember if it was a book or something I was listening to. It was a book, but I remember reading this book where it was saying how this guy was doing all these things, and I got to work all these hours to pay for my kids to go to college and do this and do that and do and do and do and do. And the reality was, like, they were like, yo, we want you. Like, we could figure college out. What we can't do is go back and get the relationship and the time that we've lost because you were so busy trying to build the vision alone. And what that, as leaders of vision, what that begins to impart to those who are following you is that they're not even really a part of your vision. If you're not included in the process of pursuit of vision, at some point they're like, well, this vision isn't for us, this vision is for him. And then that's where we're going to eventually move this conversation to, is the ego comes in. But I'll yield.
That's so funny that you were saying that, because that's actually one of the things that we talk about all the time in our business or in the structure of how we have our organization. And that's one of the things that we speak on is your vision, ensuring that your vision is big enough, right, for the people that are following you. So their vision has to be encompassed within yours, because you were just saying you don't get them to buy into the process. They feel like they have nothing. Just like, that's his vision. I don't even care what's going on. And so it's making sure that you ask them, what's your vision? But your vision has to be big enough, and you can't be myopic, right? You have to have a big imagination. You have to be able to see and look and see the bigger picture, and allow your vision to be so large that it can encompass everyone else that you're leading, and making sure that they complete theirs. But then it all flows into, which is what we were talking about, being aligned, right, into the bigger vision, right, and making sure that everything is aligned as it should be. So that's funny you said that, because we focus on that. It's one of the big things, one of our big pillars. It's like, I have to make sure my vision is big enough for everyone else.
I was reminded of something last night. I was on a call or panel alongside of Rico, and when I got off the call, the overall thought kind of popped in my head. But the question that inspired the thought, there was a gentleman on the call. I believe he's out in New York, and the question was, "What is a good life?" Right? If you had to ask yourself and define that for you, what is a good life? And the kind of tie in what Rico was saying from a business aspect, but transition it to a family aspect. As a man, uh, the vision that I had when he asked that question was, me being older, me laying down, and I'm taking my last breath, and my kids are around me, my wife's around me, and I asked myself, what is a good life? And for me, the answer to that would be, am I, or have I been the example as a man, as a father, as a husband, as the leader of my home, and did I give them more? Did I give more of my energy, time, and effort in home versus outside of my home? And it made me think about that. And so to tie that into the thought I had when I ended the call was, when it comes to vision, as I cast this vision, does my vision include my family? Right? Does it include what their goals are? Does it include with their long term, where they see themselves in 20 years? Me being the leader of the home, is my vision large enough for them to impart their vision into that vision? And so, those were kind of my last thoughts as I laid my head down on my bed, and I was just like, man, I have to step my game up. In the sense of not putting out more effort, but more of my circle of men that I'm close with. I need to share with them what my family's vision is alongside of my vision, because I know the one thing that they'll do is make sure that, number one, accountability, right? They're holding me accountable, but also challenging me like, hey, G, your vision that you just casted and the vision that you said that your family wants or family has, your vision isn't large enough for that. So for you need to expand your vision. And so when I express my gratitude of the people that I have in my circle, I'm grateful for them, for the Rose and the Ricos, because I can share a vision. It can be like, hey, gee, that's a big vision to the average person, but number one, you're not average. And alongside of that, you need to expand that vision a little bit. I'm challenging you, I'm pushing you, and I'm here to support you alongside. And I think that, kind of going back to that, take that knee, is when you have great men in your life, or you have a great community of men, you can lean to your left and to your right when you need to. And so I just wanted to express that gratitude and that thought that I had last night as we kind of, talk on vision, and Rico just sharing that last bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you bring in a great question that literally forced me to type while you were saying that. But the question I put up in the chat is, what are some of the dangers surrounding a lack of vision? I don't even want to go first. I'm gonna go probably last.
I'll go first. This is probably one of the biggest fears I have, of not having a vision, and I'll explain. Um, I like to have I have like a, I guess, a principle that I live by. I always got to have something to look forward to. If I don't have something to look forward to, it's bad, because everything becomes a grind. Every day starts merging to be the same, especially if you don't have a long-term goal or a vision that you're shooting for. You end up doing. I'll kind of piggyback on what you said earlier, Billy, about earlier in the day, not earlier in your life, not spending time enough with your family, really working and grinding. What if you gave that Billy the knowledge this Billy has with taking a knee, reflecting? How quickly do you think you would have got to where you are now as opposed to then? You become aimless. You become just like one of those cars you used to pull back in the day, and you just let it go and it just goes. Without a vision, that's basically what you are. You're just going and in a direction that you're not looking for, and who knows what you could collide into, fall into, or run over and destroy. So not having a vision or having a lack thereof is probably one of the things that I actively work to never have. Because if I have that, it's no good. It takes away your mental capacity or your mental space. It puts you in a grind mentality. Um, it's definitely one of the things that I always look to curb. Um, so I'll go ahead and defer it after expanding on it that much. Go ahead, whoever's next.
I muted myself. Rico, are you saying something? There you go.
Yeah, I was over here. Sorry, I plugged in this microphone. Lack of vision. Well, obviously, you could just keep it super simple, right? With a lack of vision, my people would perish, right? That's biblically, that's what's stated. But it's even deeper than that, because that's not just perishing physically, but it's perishing mentally. And then you have to look at the ramifications of you lacking vision, as you're following generations, right? What are you creating or damning according to your lack of vision? Because it doesn't just go right, it's far reaching. It's not just you, it's that next generation and the next generation, or it could be the opposite direction, right? But we're talking about the lack of. And so there's a lot of people that are in prison right now, they had a lack of vision, right? There was a lack of vision. They couldn't see anything outside of their environment or where they were at that time period. Or to think like, man, I got a son or I have a grandson, they're gonna need some advice, they're gonna need, however, whatever. And so that lack of vision, being able to see outside of your current circumstances, leaves you handcuffed mentally, right? And so you're stuck in a place to where you feel you don't have choices or you don't have options. And then that brings in desperation, like Tim was speaking about, right? So that the whole the desperation, it just it clouds everything, right? You're not able to think clearly, and when you're not able to think clearly, then you get into a you versus you situation, and it's usually you lose in both cases because you're pulling from yourself. So that's that. When I think of lack of vision, that's what I think about: lack of mental clarity, lack of progression for yourself here now in this generation, and rippling effect for the generations following you.
Yeah, I think Tim and Rico kind of hit on the points I wanted to touch on. So I'll take it a different direction, and I think that when I think of some of the dangers surrounding the lack of vision, one of the thoughts that pops up is that line on the ground that says danger. Alongside of it says giving up because life happened, and I think that even with that, when you have a lack of vision, or if you have self-limiting beliefs, or you have you kind of fill in the blank on the negative mindset side, it's so easy to have so many dangers. It's so easy to be distracted by the day-to-day, the little hiccups that if you had more of an optimistic mindset or a growth mindset, you could probably shift your paradigm or shift your perspective a little bit to keep pushing past that obstacle. And I think I think too many times we as men we're so easily to make the excuse to give up and just turn our backs when the thing that we wanted to acquire is just right there over that hump. And I know I keep going back to the community of men, and so I would encourage anyone watching this or hearing this or replaying this that if you feel that you're alone in this world trying to get to your next step, one of the things that can help you get there is finding a community of solid, thorough men that will, number one, be transparent, that will be honest, that will hold you accountable, because those three things, those three characteristics of an individual can just help you reach that next level. And sometimes as men, that's all we need. We need just to get to that next level. And once we hit that next level, that lack of vision, those chains break off, and all we see is vision. We don't see the lack of. And so, again, man, I just the conversation you guys are just have my wheels turning, and challenging me as a man too, to like, hey, you can't, don't be hypocritical. Come on here on this platform, speak about vision, and you get off and you don't cast a vision to the family, or you're opposite of everything that you say. And so this for me is more of an accountability check. This is for me to come on, and I take notes, I leave here and I go and try to implement immediately. I don't let a 24 hours go before I either I've shared a little bit of what we talked about in here with either my kids or my wife, and I do that not just to kind of like, this is what we talked about, but more of a like, I know you guys are my accountability, or my community of accountability. So this is why I'm verbalizing to you, because I'm the type that if I put something out there, I do it for the accountability piece, not just to, I just want to say this to you. Because I know that if I'm a man of my word, as time moves forward, if there's any shifts, is because, I mean, I said I was going to do X. And if I want to be the example, going back to the question, what does a good life look like to me? If I want my kids to have the perspective of me, of that, the one thing I can say about dad is that if he said he did something, he was a man of his word, right? And so now you guys talk about generations, how now I've been able to affect, or been the leader in this current generation, to now, and I've now touched 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 generations of the Davis legacy. And so for me, that all just kind of circles back to breaking the chain of the lack of, and just having the other piece of that chain be the vision.
I like that. The generational, like first, second, third, fourth, fifth generations, that to me is where I had to learn that the lack of vision, that's the most dangerous space for the lack of vision. Because when we lack vision, it's almost like a black hole. Rico, you touched on it, you versus you, and you end up losing. It's a black hole, it drags everything into it. And the lack of that vision that you have, for you, it's just a lack of vision for you. But what we sometimes as men fail to realize is that people are still following us. Like, yo, you don't got no vision, you aimless, and you got six people behind you. Monkey see, monkey do. What are you doing? So that's where it becomes a black hole, and it begins to envelop not only us, but those people who are following us, and those people who have been given the example to that they are modeling after. I think about, like, with my oldest son, I was really hard on my oldest son, and I'm hard on my middle son, but it's a different level of being hard on them. It's interesting to watch it as I've grown as a father, to see that taper down and taper down. And for some people, they would say you're still very hard on your child, but the reality is this. I remember when my son, once he became an adult, my oldest son, once he became an adult, he was back visiting me. I think he was back from maybe his boot camp visit or something. And we were having this conversation, and I was like, hey, can I get some feedback on what it was like having me as a father? And he was like, well, you would cuss at me when you're mad and stuff like that. And, he's like, I didn't like it then, but then I went into the military and understood, like, ain't nobody sparing your feelings. So he's like, I was actually happy that you prepared me for a part of the world, but there was another part of you that I wanted to experience besides just the preparing for the world that I was going to embark into. And so I see with my middle son, I'm having more, more. Don't get me wrong, he still gets yelled at from time to time. But actually, I've actually been getting, because of the mid circle, I've been improving on just talking to him. We could just have a conversation. I'm gonna say what I'm gonna say, but we could just have a conversation about it. And what that has done for me is now I'm imparting in him, like, the love exercise that we did from the first men's circle, imparting that thought process or that seed in him that says, I need to be thinking about how I want to experience love every year. I need to think about how I want to give that. My partner that I partner with, I we need to be having conversations about love so it's not this aimless thing that hopefully we love each other, hopefully we don't, well, hopefully when we argue we get past it. No, it's not aimless, it's very intentional. And so I think for me, when I think of the dangers of surrounding a lack of vision, it's the black hole mentality that there are people following you into this gravitational force that is going to crush them. And I use the word crush because when whenever there's a lack of vision, it means it's almost like knowing when you're going to die. If we can know when we're going to die, you would know, hey, tomorrow's my last day, all or nothing, right? You're going to do every single thing that you can in the next 24 hours. You're probably not even going to sleep. But whenever there's a lack of vision, it's almost like knowing that you're at the end, mentally being at the end. There's nothing else after this. So if there's nothing else after this because I don't have the vision to see beyond it, that means the only thing I'm left with is hopelessness. And when you're hopeless, that's when you're depressed. When you're hopeless, that's when you're suicidal. When you're hopeless, that's when rejection hurts that much more. And you're hypersensitive to everything that's going on around you. And it's really hard to be a leader in a vision and a leader in general if you're walking around with this hopeless barometer that's just getting you through each day. Like you said, Tim, that's just grinding you through each day. All right, I made it through that day. I guess I'll go to sleep now. I've actually been depressed to the point where all I would do is wake up in the morning, drive to work, go and do my 8 hours, drive home, sit on the edge of the couch, and the sun would eventually go down. I'd eventually topple over and fall asleep on the couch and wake up and do it all over again without an alarm clock. That was a hopeless existence. All I could do is go to work. That's all I knew. That was autopilot. All I knew was I got to get up and go to work because I got bills I got to pay. But when you start imparting vision, all of a sudden it's not enough to just wake up, go to work, come home, sit on the couch, and fall asleep. All of a sudden you're up at 5 o'clock in the morning and you're reflecting on your thoughts, and all of a sudden you're up at 12 o'clock at night and you're saying, oh man, I got this great content idea, and you're pushing yourself further. That's when you have vision. But when you lack that vision, man, it is a dangerous space to be in. I do want to bring some things in from the chat. I missed it, but it looks like L3 Perspective said, being honest with yourself and the situation is key. However, understanding that it might have changed the dynamic of the situation or goal, but that doesn't mean it's completely out of reach. Even though that's not in regards to this particular part of the conversation, I thought that was really powerful. I wanted to make sure I brought that in. But yeah, that's where that lack of vision really comes in for me. So now let's talk about getting the ego out of the way, because when I was younger, ego was definitely in the way, and it knocked me upside the head. And then I was like, okay, you gotta step to the side because you getting us lumped up. So when it comes to being a leader of vision, what do you think is the biggest benefit we get when we remove ego?
You said, what do you think you get? What's one of the biggest benefits?
The biggest benefit we get out of removing our ego from the vision.
I'll keep it simple. I think you get the win. I think that once ego is removed, normally when you're in the beginning phases of casting a vision, um, most times you don't have have your ego built into it, right? Normally that comes within the process, right? You cast a vision, or you have a vision, you write it down, and you cast it to whoever, whether it's people you're leading, whether it's business partners, et cetera, et cetera. And generally in that moment when you're casting it, you see certain body language not being as receptive as when you were casting it and you were excited about writing it down and presenting it. And so if you're a very egotistical individual, generally that's when that switch comes on, in first phase. But I think that if you completely remove that, and in leadership, you have to do that, right? If you want to be, and if you are an effective leader, and or if you have individuals who you see or who you deem as successful leaders, one of the things that they have removed from their characteristic is ego, right? Because something that as a leader, as a visionary, and casting that vision, when you remove ego, you allow yourself to hear other people's input. You allow uh, other people to buy into what your vision is, even though you're the creator of that vision, and you allow um, opportunities to collaborate to expand that vision to go to another level. So I think that once you remove ego, you get the win. Because at the end of the day, when you're casting a vision, that you want that win. You want to accomplish it, however you desire to accomplish it. But the end result is to accomplish it. And so once that ego is removed, I think that even if you have ego in and you still achieve whatever it is, I think that you'll achieve it quicker once the ego is removed. So
Uh, I can go. Is it, am I? It's okay. Okay, I'm good. So without ego, you said it perfectly, Glenn. You cannot be a leader with a massive ego. You have That's one of the first things you learn really quickly is to have trust in others' feedback. Um, and again, not to be married to anything. What I would say what happens though when you lose the ego is you no longer are a pawn. You're a more viable, flexible piece on the chessboard. Because if you notice, a pawn can only move forward until something's in its way, then it stops. But when you don't have the ego, it allows you to self-assess. I'll give myself as an example. Um, I hated what I did before. I was in bill collections. I was an operation manager. I led people there, but that environment was really like soul crushing, and I know I needed a change. And when I changed careers, I knew I had to start from another starting place, and it was frustrating to have to start over. But I was able to put my pride aside and see long term what it would be, and I worked really hard to get to that point. And success wise or career wise, I've never been happier. But I was able to put that ego aside and move like a chess piece on the chessboard, like a queen or a bishop. I was able to step back and pivot and move along and go along to where I wanted to go. So I think the it's liberating when you lose the ego because now you're not forced to know everything. So you're able to relate more to people and you're able to be more flexible in the pursuit of your vision.
Yeah, I think just piggybacking off of that, obviously you have to be. There's no leader. Well, I won't say no leader, but there's a good leader, right, or a great leader that has the ego overshadowing, the implementation of listening to his guys. For me, when you don't have ego, there's fulfillment and there's balance. There's two things that are super important when it comes to being a leader, right? Because it's very hard to take away your ego when you're not fulfilled mentally, right? When you don't have that self validation to say, I can defer, right? But like my teammate is having an idea. My idea doesn't have to be the idea that we're using. Like, let me step back. Let's work as a team and let's bring that together. The fulfillment of me knowing, like, okay, this is my community. We're building this all together. That's fulfillment. And mentally, I know I'm okay. I'm validated. I don't have to overshadow people. And then the balance within yourself to say that, you know, yeah, I'm the leader, but that doesn't necessarily mean that everything has to go my way. The balance says that I balance between where I may veto some things, right? Because it just won't work for us in this time. And yes, I've been blessed to be the person to be put in this position to see the full picture. But then at the same time, the balance says 50% of the time, I'm listening to other people and we're all inputting and we sit at the table and we come up with whatever it is that we're going to do. Right. And then it's that balance in your life to understand when you are doing too much, like you guys were saying, when you're stepping out of bounds or you're doing too much and you say, hey, or you ask to be checked, like Jesus all the time, accountability people. So, he does that for me. Sometimes if I'm doing something, I'll call him and like, you know, am I doing too much? But being self-aware to say, okay, I need that balance. So for me, if you don't have an ego, fulfillment and balance, two key things to being a successful leader and imparting those things into other people because they'll start to see that's the way that you lead, right? Um, people's love languages and those type of things, and they'll start to want to lead as that type of leader because you're leading through that example. We have a saying, your guys, anyone that you're leading, right, they're going to do 200% of what you do wrong and only 50% of what you do right. Okay, so how high do you want to raise that bar of what you do right? They're going to do what you do wrong anyway, right? They see that, and it's just like your children. They, well, you tell them not to smoke or whatever, and they see you doing it. They're like, well, but you doing it, and you said, well, do as I say, not as I do. Yeah, that doesn't work with people, right? So it's just thinking about that, and I think for me, that's what removing ego gets us to: fulfillment and balance.
Yeah, I love what everybody added to that as far as the liberating, the balance, just everything. And Rico, it's funny because I think about the environments that I've been in where I've been under I'm gonna say leader in air quotes, um, that was very egotistical. Um, and because I had learned, well, a couple things in the neighborhood I grew up in, I learned how to be defensive and speak my mind. It was like, I know what's not going to happen is we ain't going to get in no fist fight because you'll lose. So let's just keep this straight business. But I started looking at people who led with their ego, or when you gave them information, they took it as a personal attack. I started looking at that and saying, wow, this might be the only place that they have authority in their life. And John Maxwell talks about the 5 levels of leadership, and the very lowest level is your title. When people follow you because you have a title,
Yeah.
that's the lowest level of leadership. And so I have learned, I didn't start this way by any means, but I've learned to really move towards the higher levels of leadership, which are influence and established leadership. Like, people at this point are following me because I have proven and shown consistently that I get the results that I get. People are following and listening to me because of the influence that I have with them. Not that I have a title, not that I'm somebody special. I'm just Billy. Like, when people start talking about me, I'm just like, nah, at the end of the day, I'm just Billy. Like, money isn't going to change me. My relationships aren't going to change me. Life is not going to change me from being who I am. I'm just me. And because I've learned to accept me, when you talk, Rico, about that validation, where a lot of people are seeking validation. It's no different than us as young boys. Like, if our fathers are present in our life, and we go to take off running fast, before we do it, we want to check and see if dad is looking, right? We want that validation. But once you remove those external validating points and move it into, hey, this is who I am, and I'm appreciative of who I am, I value who I am, all of a sudden your ego isn't able to get in the way of things as much as it probably was when you were an adolescent. But removing the ego from me from the vision really has allowed me to be intentional about the things that I build. I mean, it creates an intentionality for, not am I seen doing things. Like, I can honestly care less if only 5 people know that I have a First Row YouTube page. I don't care. I'm doing this for a specific reason, and that reason is not to become famous. That reason is not a popularity contest. I think I said this on a Wednesday Word last week, where my highest views on a video was like 5,000 views on a video, but it was on a conversation around reparations, and we were just having a general conversation around reparations. But then I looked at all the toxic comments that came from that, and it was like, I'd rather have 2 views, me and my wife viewing First Row content, than to have 5 million views with a bunch of negativity attached to it. So, because I'm able to remove my ego from it, I don't go pursuing the wrong rabbit. If there's 2 rabbits on the field, I'm pursuing at least the right rabbit that's drawing the right accountability partners to me, that's drawing the right men around me, drawing the right women around me, drawing the right community around me, so that I'm still chugging in the direction of the vision that I have, versus, okay, well, I can get YouTube to pay me 1,000th of a cent for each view and like and share. It's not worth it. And I think That's what removing the vision does, is it allows you to not sacrifice your vision for a character that you never signed up for. I think that's the biggest thing that, for me at least, when it comes to removing ego from the vision, that's how it improves the vision. It removes those character flaws that we lean to serve or to hype up our ego. It removes those character flaws.
Love it.
I'll throw in one other thing, just because it kind of came to me, because it's kind of common sense, but I never really heard it articulated. Ego is the great preventer of accountability. Everything that you're saying is because you're able to be accountable, right? But when you have an ego, it's never your fault. Nothing ever is your fault. It's somebody else's fault. And because you have to maintain your ego, right? Because you could never be wrong. So when you're able to remove the ego, that allows you to be more accountable. And when you're able to be more accountable, that leads to change and growth and a better you, to where you actually earn that ego you once had for no reason. You actually have the right to have it now, but you choose not to because there was no point of it in the first place. Most ego is simply derived from insecurity of being in a position you don't really feel you should be in, deep down in your soul, in your bones. So I think, after backing off what everybody said, that is the biggest thing to me, is when you remove the ego, you allow accountability into the room. And really nothing ever goes wrong when that happens.
I love that accountability. It does. It's the excuse. Ego is the ultimate excuse, really. That's really what it comes down to. It's the ultimate excuse. Whether it's because I've always been this way, I ain't gonna change. Y'all ain't gonna change me. And my wife would tell you, hey, I ain't changing. I've told her numerous times in conversations, like, this is who I am. But I'm not opposed to evolving, but there's certain aspects about who I am that I've accepted, that this is who I am. It's completely different than me saying, well, I'm a man and you gonna do what I say and listen to me because I'm the man and that's how it's supposed to be. No, 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 no. It's, hey, I'm comfortable with being this person for me. I'm not looking to change this part of my character. If there comes a time that I'm looking to change this part of my character, happy to have that conversation with you. I'm even open to some of the feedback. But once I've said that I'm not going to change, you can't swindle or persuade or shift me over to a change that I've already told you the square that I'm standing on. And this is, even in the community that I live, this is what I think a lot of people are not accustomed to, because we're so accustomed to bouncing up against people's egos, that it's like, oh, this is an ego thing. We discount people's like hard stances. It's like, it's interesting. Sexually, we can understand when a woman says no, no means no, right? We can understand that. Um, but when I say no, that's not what I want to do, or no, that's not who I am, or no, that's not who I want to be, that's harder to accept because it's easily dismissed with ego. And so I think, Tim, you said, I think it was you, Tim, you said liberating, that when we begin to remove our ego from things, we're liberated because we can't be manipulated. And we can't be manipulated by our ego, but people can't speak to our ego to go around us and speak to our ego, if that makes better sense. Like, because the ego will be like, oh, you just gonna let him say that? Look, I've already made my decision. The only reason I would have to shoot somebody in this world is if they broke into my house or somebody I immediately loved was in danger and I had to take their life to prevent harm to somebody that I love and care about. Other than that, you can talk about my mama, my daddy, my bald-headed granny. I do not care about none of that. None of that is going to get the rise that you think is going to get out of me. I was watching this video where there's this guy, and there's a guy holding him at gunpoint saying, hey, get on the ground. Like, I don't want to fight you. I'm not about to fight you. Get on the ground. The guy comes towards the guy. He's like, I'm going to take that gun from you. And the guy lowers his gun, pow, shoots him in the leg. The guy goes down. He's like, you shot me. Hey, look, I didn't pull this gun out as a practical joke. I didn't pull this gun out to make you feel like I'm the bigger guy here. That wasn't what this was about. This was about me protecting myself, making sure I'm safe. I told you to get on the ground 3 times. I didn't even shoot you until you approached me. But once you close ground, especially I know you, Glenn, being in the military, once you begin to close ground, you're already engaged. We're already engaged in combat at that point. I don't wait until you touch me and take my gun, and now it's, oh, wait, we in a fight. No, we're in a fight the moment you engage me in combat. And so I think that's that liberating aspect is that by removing our ego, it gives us the ability to this is going to sound interesting, but it gives us the ability to force people to deal with us. There is no circumventing me to go and talk to my ego so my ego can provoke me to do something that I never wanted to do in the first place. It requires and focuses you on, it requires and demands that you speak directly to me. And that's not an ego thing. That is an accountability thing, because when you're speaking directly to me, now all of a sudden things don't get lost in communication. I said what I said. I said that's not what I wanted to do. And just like for women, no means no for me in this stance. So, man, good call out on that.
That ego being manipulated is real, because sometimes people will play into that and they'll be complimentary, and they'll try to sidetrack you from something you really want to really have going on. But if you're an ego person with an ego, that completely derails you. You're like, whatever, no big deal. But when you're beyond that and you're accountable, you're like, okay, that's nice and all. Let's talk about what's really the issue. And then you're able to, again, like you said, there's no circumvention.
I think I want to bring up something about that, because moving away from ego and kind of like you're saying into the flattery aspect of ego, the negative to the flattery, when it comes to leading the vision, and I see this happen so many times, but when it comes to leading the vision, especially for men, we fall into the trap of women. Like, we're about to get real on this vision. We're about to get real. We fall into the trap of women, and that flattery aspect, even if it's not vocalized, it's demonstrated in a way when there's a man who is leading a vision, is carrying a vision. There's people who follow him, people who, and this is why I believe this happens, people who trust him. When that is in place, it seems like the Jezebel is right around the corner. You could have been doing everything right your entire life. Ain't nobody bothered you. All of a sudden, you're in a vision space where you're leading that vision. People see you as the leader. And all of a sudden now, every temptation known to man is knocking on your door. And this ain't even a religious thing for me. This is just being a man. I've seen this happen with I can't remember his first name, but he would be the guy who would always say, oh, Derek Jackson, the guy who was always Team Jackson, what's happening, and all these things, and oh, this and that, and I'm this. And if the man ain't treating you like this, then this. And if the man ain't doing that, then it's not all these things. And he elevated on a platform of treating women right. And the same thing that he elevated on is the same thing that took him out. Like, and that's not to no diss to Derek Jackson or whatsoever, because I believe we're all fallible. There's nothing to say that tomorrow on the first row I have to say, hey, y'all, sorry, I blew it. There's nothing that says that's not me. But I see this happen time and time again, and I would love to get your guys' perspective as to why we as men become so fallible when we are on the right track. We become fallible to the opposite sex.
So I'm in a season of transparency. So I wanted to unmute and go first on this one, because I'm also in a season of vulnerability. I'm also in a season of being honest with my accountability partners, and not only being honest. For me, it was simply not keeping the main thing the main thing. You take her. And that's what it boiled down to, right? Like, I could cast a vision every single day. there could be distractions within that vision, as the elevation begins, and the distractions will allow you to shift your focus off of the main thing. And so, if I could give any piece of advice, even to myself and a reminder to myself, um, it would be keep the main thing the main thing. In addition to that, I will continue to tie this into the accountability partner thing, because I've never in my life, in my seasons of life, valued accountability partners more now than I did before. Because I know that at any given moment, because I'm human, because I'm a man, my eyes can wander. They'll never wander with my wife on the side of me, but they could wander. And right, and so what I don't want to do, what I don't want it to do, is allow those eyes to now become thoughts, and to those thoughts to become things. So in between that, I know that I got Rico on speed dial. I got Ro on speed dial. I could, just call them and either be open and honest in that very moment, because I know that they'll be like, hey, G, hey, remember you said you wanted to keep the main thing the main thing. And if you don't have people, if you don't have men in your life that can not encourage you to, hey, well, ain't nobody else watching. Just go holler. Just go grab the number. Versus to, when you have a group of men, it's like, bro, that's not in alignment with our vision. That's not in alignment with the character. That's not in alignment with who you are today versus who you were yesterday. Right. And so that question, bro, is great for this platform. And so, like I said, in the season of a transparency, being open, being honest, and rebuilding who I am as a man and an individual, and the example of what I view as a man, that's what I'll say with that. Keep the main thing the main thing. Even though it's easier said than done, that's where you bring in the other people that you trust, your circle of folks, where you can be like, hey, listen, I'm dealing with this thing. I'm dealing with my eyes wandering. I'm dealing with whatever it is, and I need help. Right? I can't do this alone. Right? I can't win this battle alone. So, I may need therapy. I may need my accountability partners. I may need it all. But I need daily reminders. So if I need to write that thing on my mirror, the thing that I look at every single day when I'm brushing my teeth, on that word and permanent marker, removable marker, it says keep the main thing the main thing. So
Love that.
Keep the main thing the main thing. For me, honestly, I think what ends up happening is it's just like Samson, right? You start to believe your own hype. That's really what it is. I mean, for a man, we're talking about ego. Ego goes into that. You start to smell yourself a little bit. You get a little bit excited. Other people are telling you, "Oh, you're a great leader." People, yeah, you can see your maybe your following starts to grow. You get a little bit more followers. You get a little bit more attention. Things start happening. But the main thing is never believe the hype, man. Continue to remain humble and stay the same person that you were. And when I say that, that's impossible because you're gonna evolve. There's things that you don't do, right? And as you grow, maybe even financially or even mentally, right, you're gonna change some things, or you might be elevated to another position, and things happen. But in that time period, just as you're keeping the main thing, stay humble, right? Like, don't believe the hype, because just as quick as you gain that notoriety, as you got to that level, it could just be stripped from you. I think about my man, what's his name, Jonathan Majors. I think about a situation that happened with him. You don't know, you can read up on that, but we exactly what we're talking about. This guy's in these multiple multi-billion-dollar grossing movies, right? Just killing it, and then something happens, and then here he is losing everything, right? People, I don't know if we're going to hire him for acting, all these different things. And so keep the main thing the main thing. Don't believe the hype. Remain centered, remain humble, right? As Glenn says, keep your accountability partners, people that aren't yes men around you. That's a huge thing. Don't let them tell you that you're okay doing whatever you're doing. You need someone that's going to tell you and check you like, hey, that's trash, man. Right now you're trash. You need to be better. You're like, just straight up, bro, you suck right now. You're a horrible person. Get yourself together. And you need that, right? And so all that goes into it. Don't believe the hype, man.
Um, I'll follow that, which It's a simple answer to me, but it doesn't make it any less complex. And the simple answer is the greatest drug that anybody could have, and that's validation. Validation. Once you start feeling validated, nothing feeds an ego than a steady diet of validation. So you have two things feeding off each other that create the monster that you were trying to avoid in the first place. It's funny you mentioned Team Jackson because I remember laughing when I heard about it, because when I think about it, I always try to put myself in positions to not to speak above anybody. And it's really funny. Like, I feel like things happen for a reason, and I don't think he understood the blessing that he was facing. Even though it was a bad situation, the beauty of it is learn. Learn how to handle and speak to people instead of talking at people, relate to people. It's very real. Temptation is hard. It is. But I think of a song every time that comes on is last week they didn't want me, this week they all upon me, right? And I think about that, and it's funny because you're so on the money, man. When you start, nothing attracts a woman, I would say, and this is in general, of course, but in my experiences, nothing attracts a woman than your utter nonchalance. When you just don't give a damn about seeking that type of attention, nothing is a greater pheromone. And when you don't care and you're focused, and that attracts the woman because they're like, look how driven he is. He doesn't even pay attention to the skimpy dress I'm wearing. Now they feel in their mind they got to up their game to get your attention because they need that fed as much as you need. Because as men, women are used to a level of validation constantly. As men, we are validation starved. And it's easy to fall into that trap to hear, man, you're looking really handsome. You've been working out. That's little things like that go a long way with a man, especially if he's not hearing that routinely from who he should be hearing it from. So it's a very real thing, that validation piece, because, man, and you're talking about creating monster, that really, really, really creates a monster that could really destroy your life. And there's plenty of examples of that. But that's just the simplest answer is the validation, man. That drug that we all, and everybody, they can see, I don't care what nobody thinks as they post general things on Facebook asking for prayers about miscellaneous thing they're going through because they want the likes and the validation in the comments. We all care, and we should all have some level of care of what others think, but it's that healthy balance that sets you apart. So I'll go ahead and kick it to the rest because it seems like there's some wheels turning. So I'll turn it to y'all.
No, the Mike Jones has me cracking up, but but you're right, because one of the notes while you guys were talking that I typed was disbelief makes belief intoxicating. The fact that ego is a reflection of an insecurity that we have, and I've been in some horrible and crazy situations in my life because I've lived to my ego. And I remember not the last, but one of the last opportunities that I had to live to my ego. And, Glenn, since we're being fully transparent, we'll be fully transparent. This is right before I get married. And I've always been a social person. I've never been alone when it comes to women, never had problems getting women whatsoever. But I remember right before I had gotten married, not my marriage recently, previous marriage, right before I had gotten married, I had met this young lady, and she was a very phenomenal person. And I remember I was like, yo, I'm gonna just not talk to her because I could feel a chemistry here. I'm just gonna not talk to her. And that nonchalantness was like, normally people talk to me. And she understood that I'm a person, when you challenge me, oh, I rise to challenges. So it was like, so you're just going to sit here and be on your phone all night and not talk to me. Oh, well, you have to give me something to talk about to be off of my phone. And that led me down a year and a half worth of trauma, drama. I mean, from hey, we have a kid. Oh, just kidding. That's not really your baby. Like all kinds of things that happened from this experience. And I remember after I had gotten married, this person comes to me and they're like, "Hey, look, I know you didn't choose me, but I want to be able to spend maybe once a month with you, twice at most." And my ego was like, that ain't that bad. I was like, yo, the core and the character of who I wanted to be. And I didn't know I wanted to be this person, but I knew this is where I wanted to at least somewhat land or somewhere be. I was like, yo, I don't think having a planned affair once a month on my wife is a good look. Like, I can't put my finger on it right now because I'm not mature enough to. Can't put my finger on what's not right about that. But I know somehow, some way that that's not the recipe for success. Like, I just know that inherently. And so I remember after I got divorced and I went back into the dating world, I was always very clear on who I wanted to be. Like, if a woman was like, "Hey, yo, I'm not trying to hook up. I'm not trying to have hookups," I was like, "Cool," because I'm not either, because I don't know you. And I remember going to a woman's house, and it was the first date, and she invited me back to her house, and I'm at her house. First off, your kids are here. Why would you invite me to your house? Your kids are here. You don't even know me. But we're at her house, and she's like, "So, you're kind of attractive. Do you want to mess around?" And I was like, "Nah," because you told me that's not what you were about, and I agreed to that. And she was like, "Well, I now that I've had dinner and we've talked, and I really think you're attractive, this, that, and the other. We can mess around." And I was like, "No, I'm good." And she was like, "Well, what, are you not attracted to me?" I was like, "You're not unattractive. I just this is what I came out with the anticipation of, is just having dinner, conversation, chilling, and then going back to my house, not staying at your house, not you come back to my house." And so she was just like, "Well," I said, "Plus," I said, I didn't bring condoms, nothing. I didn't bring nothing with me because I'm not a liar." Going back to credibility, Glenn, I want my kids to know, if I say that, "Hey, I'm really not pursuing you for sexual interests because I want to get to know you," I really mean that. And so she was like, "Oh, well, I have condoms here." And I was just like, "Yo, just like yo condoms, I don't know you and I don't know yo condoms. So I'm all the way out. Like, I'm out. I'm not interested." But I think about the journey to get to that point, because there was a point where, oh, she's feeling me, she's feeling the vibe. All right, I'm gonna do what I do, and then I'm gonna move on. And to get to that space, it doesn't surprise me that my wife and I connected on the exact same platform, went through exact same dating process, and now here we are married, building a future, because of the fact that the person that I knew instinctively I wanted to be, the non-cheating on his wife, having a regularly scheduled affair husband, was able to meet somebody who's like, "Hey, I see who you're trying to be, and I'm going to work to help you get there. And this is who I'm trying to be, and I'm going to also hope that you'll help to work to get me there as well." So, like I said, man, I told y'all this is about to get real. But I have been, I don't want to say a victim. I have allowed my ignorance about when you didn't think it was really going to happen. I allowed that to be um my secret drug. Well, I didn't think it was going to happen, but now it's happening. And now look, this girl that I thought was super dope is like paying me some mind. I'm gonna keep doing this, but now I'm over here distracted from what I was doing that got the attention. And I'll leave it with these last two things. I had somebody ask me, they were like, "Oh, well, were you ever attracted to me?" And I said, "I'm be honest with you. At this point in my life, I don't think about women that aren't my wife, whether I be attracted to them or was attracted to them. I don't think about that, because I understand that I'm a visionary. I understand that if I say, 'Damn, I'm attracted to her,' my mind will automatically set the path to make that interaction take place. Will automatically. I don't have to try. I don't have to sit up overnight to plan it out. It will automatically on autopilot figure out the path to get there. And I don't want that. So I don't focus on that anymore. It took a long time to get to that space to where I could allow myself to say, you know what? At the end of the day, I want to be a husband that's faithful to his wife. I want my wife to feel like she's my world. Um, and I don't want that to be a fraudulent, fictitious story. So the drug aspect of it, of getting to a space of success, it really comes down for me to who do I want to be? And then I have to sometimes intentionally and painfully make those decisions that drive me to be that person, even when, second head is thinking, hey, just a dip. Nah, I'm cool. There's too many problems that come with that dip. I'm not interested.
It's funny how that works, though, right? Because when you're able to get the attention of somebody that others want the attention of, and you're doing it kind of just not even trying, it's intoxicating. Because look, I could have that. I just don't want it. Everybody wants it. I could have it, but I ain't taking it. And there's that ego poking his head in the door again. And the problem with ego, once you invite the ego in, the ego's gonna, when you do kick the ego out, it doesn't leave empty-handed. It's taking something. It's taking something with it on its way out, and you just got to hope that you didn't cause enough damage on the way out. But yeah, it's funny because I look back, and that's how when I first got introduced, when I first met my wife, we worked in the same company, and um, I was circling the drain on a marriage that was we were just growing apart. We did not get along. But even though I was still trying to be a good dude, and she was new, and I seen her and I was like, holy crap. Same thing you said, like, keep this person away from me. Only bad things gonna happen if this interaction starts happening. And she remembered that. I bump into her after my divorce. This is years later. I bump into her and she goes, you were really kind of standoffish with me. I always wondered why. And that was part of the attraction. She was wondering because she was used to getting attention from others and wasn't getting it from me, and was like, man, what? Because she was immature, I was immature. We were all kids at some point. But it's really funny to look back and reflect on that, of how, as people, we're adults legally, but it's funny how immature we are to a certain point, and the things we have to go through, even though we're technically adults and we can make life-altering decisions that, even though as adults we weren't equipped to do. We have the ability to make them, not equipped to handle them. But man, that stuff gets real intoxicating when you could have things that others want and you're choosing not to. And then you start, like you said, Rico, believing that hype, man. You start believing that hype, and then like Glenn says, next thing you know, what was that main thing again? What was that main thing? And then you just lose sight of everything. And then you're aimless, right back to what we were talking about. No vision, aimless, moving towards the center of that black hole. So I'll go ahead and leave it to whoever's next.
Nah, I just thought that's great. That's all I had on that. You're right. It's every time you say don't believe the hype, I think of Spike Lee. But that's what it comes down to, is once we start, it's almost like remember when we were kids, Tim, how you waterfall a drink, right? You waterfall in your drink. Oh, let me get some of your soda, and you waterfall in your drink. But the reality is even when the person stops pouring, there's still some fluid in the air that's still going to come down at some point. And so when you're in this space of, indulging even just a little bit, that's why I'm like, yo, I can't play, I can't flirt with it, that I can't do it. It's not, because it's not in me to leave a mission incomplete. It's not in me. And so because I know that's not in me, I cannot start something with the hopes that it won't reach fruition, because it will. Because I won't leave it. Even if I leave it alone for 5 years, my brain is still going to be like, hey, yo, we didn't finish that task. And so for me, I've just learned you cannot dabble. And that's why, like with Derek Jackson, I didn't agree with his content, because I was like, ain't no man in the world pristine like that pristine. Like, men do everything wrong and women do everything right. Like, nah, that's not a reality. But his folly and how he got caught up, I can empathize with that, because I understand when you're so busy doing what your natural state. You're so easy. You're naturally this person. You're doing that effortlessly. It's so easy to get caught up in that when it brings a result that you didn't anticipate, but you appreciate and you enjoy. And I'm sure there's a lot of heroin addicts and crack addicts and meth addicts that could probably preach the same sermon. So I will say this, though, and this is one of the things my godfather taught me. He taught me at a very young age, but he taught me about your light. As men are light. And he would tell me, he would say, Billy, the reason why there's so many women attracted to you is because you have a light. And it is clear for everybody to see that you have a light. And what that light does is it attracts people to you. And the women, they don't know that they know they're attracted to you, but they don't know they're attracted to you because of your light. And your light is attached to the character of who they perceive you to be. You're a good man, you're a good father, you're a good husband. That's what that light is attached to. And then they get attracted to it. They come to that light and they're enamored with it. And then you do something like sleep with them or flirt with them or make out with them or do something inappropriate with them. And what that does is it dims your light. And over time, as your light dims and dims and dims, all of a sudden these people who were attracted to you are like, he's not even really that attractive. I tell people all the time right now, hey, look, I got about a C+ body. You gonna get about I'm gonna get to at least an A on personality. You just gonna have to get to me on the personality. But that's the thing, is it's like, I understand that personality, that character, that energy that I put out is my light. And every decision that I make that constricts that light actually removes the very attraction that people have towards me. And so that was one of the biggest lessons. And it took me a long time to learn that lesson, because I didn't understand. It's like, man, I'm single. I'm talking to this female. She's feeling me. I'm feeling her. And then we're doing things that are dimming. I'm doing things. I don't even want to say I'm doing things that are dimming my light. And then they're leaving. And then it's funny, because then there's other women looking at her like, yo, you left Billy Rowe. What the hell is you talking about? But it's because the light was so dim to that person who was with me. It's minuscule. Whereas the person who's on the outside, who doesn't know all the ups and the downs and the mood swings and all that stuff, that person's like, no, that light's bright and I want to bask in that. So I again, when it comes to people who are just on the opposite side of a coin that I've been on myself, I'm like, hey, I empathize. But like you said, Tim, there's a lesson. And if we can learn the lesson, that's one of the lessons that I learned. I don't play Jack be nimble jumping over the candlestick no more, because I'm not trying to burn nothing at this point. I'm going to just blow the candle out and walk around. I'm good. So with that, we're almost at time. But I do want to start. I don't know if I want to go with one more question or if I want to. Okay, I think I'll go with one more question. Sorry, I had to make up that decision. But when it comes to vision, trying to bring us back to leading visions, we kind of gone everywhere in this particular vision conversation, but bringing us back to leading vision, there's, to me at least, a difference between intentionally driving towards your vision and accidental results, like accidentally arriving at a place and then saying, oh yeah, I guess I could, tolerate this place, and so this is now the vision. For for me, for instance, first row was an accident. Initially, first row was an accident. I had an experience, I shared the experience on Facebook, thought about it a little bit, said, man, that was kind of a good experience for me, I think I'm going to do that again. Still very much accidental. It wasn't like I planned first row. But once I started doing it, I shifted from accidental results to intentional vision. Hey, I'm going to grow this thing to XYZ. And since then, I've seen first row just continue to rise, 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 rise. So, my question to you guys would be, for you, is there a difference between intentional vision and accidental results, and can they both work hand in hand in order to be leaders of vision?
I think so. Um, not to obviously be religious or anything, because that's not what this is about. I just use examples that people can relate to. Intentional. Jesus, obviously, right? Very intentional with his overall purpose, knew what it was, right? Followed in that, walked in that. That was, he knew his purpose, followed it out, right? Intentional with the vision, knew what he was supposed to do. That's one way to do it. By accident, I can give two examples: Moses and David. Yet David was still, right, said to be a man after God's own heart, right? So you think about that, and it's like I can accidentally slip and fall into. He fell into a couple of things. We were just speaking about some of the stuff that he kind of slipped and fell into, but it's that's just saying that you can accidentally go into something and it leads you into the path that you needed to be into, right? And then you could be intentional and it goes into it. I'm not going to say which way is better. Because I mean they both had a rough go of it, right? I think sometimes your mistakes are what lead you to the realization that you need to be on a certain path. If you had done things the right way or the way that you saw logically in your brain to go and do it, you wouldn't be the same person. And that's why a lot of times when people say, "Oh, I would have never done that. I would have been in a different place if I would have." Well, of course you would have, but you would have been a completely different person. You are the person that you are today because of your experiences, right? And so that's the thing. It's not the chicken or the egg. It's just like it is what it is. If you intentionally get there and you put the time in, maybe you get there sooner, like Tim was saying earlier. Maybe, right, Billy, with you. What if you would have that Billy that says take a knee? What if you would have done that then? But then at the same time, you wouldn't have the knowledge that you have now because you wouldn't have had those experiences, right? So you couldn't mentor and actually minister to people the way that you do. So with that being said, whichever way that you get there, just make sure I tell people this, just make sure that you're documenting it so that way you can use metrics and see how far you've grown, how far you've gone and how far you've grown, right? And then you can help others.
I would say for me, as a visionary, uh, it's it's about perspective, right? So, like when I think about like being intentional or having an intentional vision, like Rico was saying, it's kind of easy to set milestones and have write down the data, have metrics, different things like that. On the opposite side, I say perspective. My perspective, I replaced kind of that word with more of the law of attraction, because while you may have an intentional vision of going a certain direction, and then I believe that certain things, just based off of your beliefs, your energy, you attract certain things, and those certain things can be opportunities that open up and kind of just expand the vision. It goes back to kind of collaborating, with different things. And so, to answer one of your questions, Billy, yes, I believe that they do go hand in hand. But I also believe alongside of that intentional vision, is especially if you are moving in the right direction, you're bringing in people who are like-minded, who are helping you to take that vision to the next level. It's like attracts like, right? And so that law of attraction can in turn open up another door of opportunity again, which expands that vision. So, which is kind of accidental, right? Like you are intentionally walking this way, but just by force and energy, someone comes over to you, hey, I like your energy. They want to just walk with you. Next person, oh, I like your guys' energy. What are you guys talking about? Oh, I like the vision you guys are casting. Oh, I've always dreamt about X, Y, and Z. I never had the vision, or I never had the people, right? All that was by accident, but by accident, it was attracted, the law of attraction. So, that's what I wanted to speak on with that intentional vision and the law of attraction kind of blending together.
Yeah, I won't say anything that's going to shatter the mold, except I think the question I'm more interested in is, because they both happen, is how do you make the accidental intentional? So to me, when I think about this question, I think about things that it's like, hate to go to the well. We've talked about it a lot of times in numerous conversations, but that reflection piece. And I have a saying with my people when I talk to them and they have breakthroughs and stuff like that. I call it: have you Hanseled and Greteled it? Have you figured it out? Like, have you left the breadcrumbs? Can you, if I were to start you over again, can you retrace the steps to success you got now? Can you do that? Because if you haven't, what happens when you go in a slump? How do you know what success is if you don't know what it looks like or the components going into it? So you're succeeding now. Think about and take inventory of what led you to that. So that way, when you're in doubt, you can go back to those principles and recapture the success again. So to me, it's about the marrying of the two, as Glenn and Rico eloquently put it. It's the accidents tend to happen, and it's kind of like, remember, Billy, me and you had a conversation one time about when you got your latest career, and a lot of people were saying, "Man, you're real lucky, man. You're real lucky," and it's like, "Whoa, I'm lucky." How about, it's funny how lucky things happen to those that put in the work, that are ready for the opportunity, right? Um, that's kind of the same thing, where if you're able to marry the two, you're no longer lucky. You're no longer accidentally doing anything. You're able to, the accidents tend to find you when you're preparing yourself and you stumble into things. You tend to stumble into things that you're pursuing. Um, if you're doing things wrong, kind of going off the previous conversation, you're going to stumble yourself into some affairs. If you're doing, that's how you're conducting yourself, you're going to have some accidental ones and some intentional ones. You're always going to have accidental and intentional in everything that you do. So that's why it's really important that your focus and your vision is clear, because if you're traveling the right path, those accidents are going to be beneficial to you. But it's about what you do with those accidents when you get them. If you're able to break it down on what led me here, and boy, and have that breakthrough, now you can copy and paste that going forward, and then maybe even hone and teach it to help others that struggle. So to me, that's what I think about when I hear that question.
Yeah, the accidental and intentional stumbles. That's absolutely. You're going, if you're looking for snakes and you go to a place where snakes reside, you're more likely going to find a snake than not find a snake.
Find you.
Right. I can throw a fishing lure into my bathtub and never catch a fish. But if I go to a pond where fish reside, I'm probably going to catch something, even if it's just a snag. So, man, no, I definitely appreciate you guys. I want to, before we go into closing thoughts, I want to do the key takeaways really quick because we only got 12 minutes, but some really good takeaways tonight. As you, Glenn, said earlier, you take notes. I'm always taking notes on the side, and then what notes I want to bring into the conversation. So I have 6 takeaways tonight and a small exercise that I'm going to end up doing with my family. Key takeaway number 1 for tonight is make sure your vision is large enough to embody the vision of others. Rico, you said that in the beginning, and that was really about alignment. If your vision is only me, it's probably not big enough to embody the visions of others. Takeaway number 2 is from Glenn. You said, take a knee. Man, if I love what you said, Rico, in regards to if I would have taken the knee previously, I wouldn't have had the lesson from not taking the knee. But I think that it is important to take the knee when you get the opportunity to, so that you're not, two things aren't happening. You're not burning yourself out with your vision, and you're not burning others out with your vision. And the burning others out is, again, when you're burning through those relationships, or Tim, like you said, that I remember it being like the Happy Meal cars, those little friction cars that you could just kind of pull back and they go forward. Yeah. And they go wherever they want to go. They hit toes, they hit cabinets, they hit whatever. But take that knee and take that moment so that you're really moving forward as efficient as you possibly can in your vision. Takeaway number 3 also came from Rico. Get back to the fundamentals. And at first I had get back to the fundamentals because you went first, Rico, but I moved it after take the knee. Take the knee, take the break, take the rest, regroup, and then get back to the fundamentals. There's something that got you to where you were. And if you don't want to be there, then get back to the fundamentals that are opposite of the fundamentals that you've done to get to where you're at. So that's number 3. Number 4 was keep ego out of the vision. And really that's keeping excuses out of your vision and holding yourself accountable within your vision. Number 5 was keep the main thing, big G. Keep the main thing the main thing. In 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, they say never let what matters but never let what matters the most be at the mercy of what matters the least. Keep the main thing, and you should be okay. And then number 6 that I pulled from the conversation tonight is convert the accidental into intentional. Tim, that's literally what that is. If you're marching in a direction, of course you might accidentally find $100 on the ground, but how you convert that $100 is what makes the difference with that $100. It's not that you found it, that didn't make the difference. How you use that $100 is what really makes that difference. So convert that accidental into intentional. Those accidental moments within your vision, those things that you're attracting in your vision, convert those into intentional movements to progress your vision. And then as this being leading the vision, the exercise, I think really the exercise I'm going to take away from this and work on with my wife and my son and our son is working on identifying the main thing. And this isn't just me identifying the main thing for my vision, but how do I look at the vision that my family has? And if I'm going to be the leader of the vision, then I need to have awareness of all the visions that fall underneath that vision. And so I think that'll be the exercise that I work on in the next 2 weeks with my family. And we'll again touch back. They struggled and I struggled with the love exercise that I gave us. But that's what I'm going to take away from this tonight is working on identifying the main thing for the family's vision and making sure that everything as the leader and the head of this family is in a space where I'm aware of it and I can encourage it and I can support it. So that's what I have as the exercise for the night. With that, I'm going to let you guys jump off with closing comments. We could go backwards. I think we ended with Glenn, so Glenn will end with you. We'll start with you and we'll end with Tim.
Got you. Again, first and foremost, I will end off by saying that I'm grateful to have the opportunity to be on this platform and be a listening ear and just kind of sit at the table. I will say, again, in the beginning, I talked about the word leadership and the word vision. I'm glad that we were able to kind of spend some time talking about the both of it and adding to it. And in 2018, I came across this quote by the lady of Helen Keller. And this always stuck with me. So anytime that I hear the word vision, I think about vision, I reflect on vision, this quote pops in mind, and I'll share it here. And it says, nothing in life is worth having, or is nothing in life is worse than being blind than having sight but no vision. And so I say that because oftentimes as men, we limit ourselves with vision. Sometimes we just kind of run around in circles because we have no vision. Um, and we don't understand the power of having vision compared to someone that was being blind, right? And so those are my closing thoughts. Thank you, Billy Rowe, for inviting me back to be on the platform, man. Grateful for you, Tim. Grateful for your thoughts, Rico, as well. And thank you, guys.
Definitely anytime. Rico, what you got?
Yeah, definitely. We just want to show, stand in the spirit of gratitude, obviously. Appreciate having the opportunity to speak, be on this great platform with you gentlemen. Obviously, it's super thought provoking. The information that we get, we're always going to take it in, process it. Hopefully, we're applying it, right? Implementation is key, execution. So, for me, closing words, I'm going to go with Glenn. Glenn is the quote king. So, I've learned to take some quotes from Glenn. I need to stack up my quotes. But super simple. Bill Gates said, so many people overestimate what they can do in a year and underestimate what they can do in 10. Make sure that your vision is aligned, right? Make sure that your vision is written down. Make sure that, your vision is you, right? Because in so many cases, we try to duplicate others. And so with that being said, don't try to do too much and then don't ever settle to not do enough. That's it.
Love it. Love it. Tim, what you got?
My takeaways are it's kind of like everything. It's kind of general to say, but man, this has been a great conversation, and just being able to the things we talked about, like removing ego, ego being the enemy of accountability. Just when I look back in my life, the times I was most depressed, I was most in a bad way, is when I had no vision. And when I had no vision and I still had my ego, it was everybody else's fault and not mine. And that is the quicksand that will take your life away from you. And man, when I look back on that now, when I look at things now, I breathe so much easier because I always have something that I'm working towards and I feel purpose driven. And I think one of the things that we miss out on, because people talk about, what is basic human necessity, right? Basic human necessity: food, water, clothes, shelter, right? In my opinion, we're missing two. The other two we've talked about in the previous men's circle is we need love, and the other one is we need purpose. And if you're missing love and purpose, you're only running on the bare necessities. And it's almost like you have a hospital you're running, you're only going off the generator. Sooner or later, that generator gonna pop because you don't have the other things that are contributing to that flow. So this has been real, to put it mildly, because it's funny. I think about like some of the things we were talking about with the opposite sex, and my wife tells me this all the time. She's like, "You're just flirting with these people, with these women," and I'm like, "Not at all." I They take it as flirting because all I'm doing is I have zero expectations. And I'm talking to them, and to them, they're like, he has zero expectations. They're innately feeling like they need to get some expectation out. So they flirt a little bit more. But I can't control what they do. And I've had this conversation with her. You break down my stuff. I'm not doing anything wrong. You can't hold me accountable for the actions of others. A wise man once said, what somebody else eats don't make me shit. I think that was Jay-Z, Blueprint, first one. So those are my takeaways. Again, really thankful for Glenn, Rico, yourself, Ro, always giving great avenues and paths and perspectives that linger, which these men's circles, they linger, man, for a while. So this is good.
Yeah, man. It's funny because one of the things I typed right before you started talking was collective thought. Going back to, if you're in the vicinity of something, you're going to stumble into it. And that is one of the things that this men's circle is really exposing in my life. right now for this time is having men. I mean, I have tons of men who I'm accountable to in my life, but having these open, honest, transparent, vulnerable conversations. It's interesting to think you know about a topic and then to sit with four minds and find out that you didn't know everything. That's an amazing ability, and I think that that's what um, I'm still trying to figure out what the men's circle's overall objective will be, but until we figure it out, we'll just keep accidentally meeting every other Tuesday. But it's this topic, man, like just leading the vision. What I'm actually taking away tonight in my closing thought is the responsibility that we have as men to truly lead vision, not act like we're leading the vision. Because Rico, you said something very early in the conversation that a leader doesn't have to know everything. A leader can lean on other people within the vision. That I don't have to have the best idea. I can take any idea that comes and execute that idea as if it was my idea, but it's just coming from the collective. And so that's what I'm taking away tonight is the onus or the responsibility or the I don't even want to say the responsibility, the duty that I have as a father, as a husband, as a man, when it comes to leading even those who I may just come across their path. That duty is not something to be taken lightly. Um, I know that I'm probably going to make more mistakes along the way, but to be accountable to those mistakes, because that accountability will drive me further than covert, secretive, shameful, hiding actions would ever drive me in a vision. So I'm always grateful, even though today I was tired. I don't know why on Tuesdays all of a sudden I'm tired, but I was tired before I came on. But every time I lead these conversations, I'm energized. I'm still tired, but I'm energized because there's so many new thoughts for me to explore, so many new tools for me to explore it. And for that, I'm very grateful to each and every one of you. For those of you who are watching live, the next time that you will be able to catch some content live, actually, I'm going to let you, Brother Glenn, take over on that one. The next live content that they'll be able to access. That's all you.
Hey, appreciate it, Ro. Thanks for the opportunities. Yeah, so the Elder Perspective conversations and a platform where we're talking about life, we're talking about love, and talking about leadership, just providing value, man. There's a lot of things that go on in life where all three of these kind of blend well. The episode, our newest episode, episode 28, just dropped today, this morning. And then the next episode will be next Tuesday. We'll be dropping episode 29. So appreciate it, Big Ro.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And then tomorrow you can catch the Wednesday word. On first row, we are going to have the Wednesday word will be about acceptance. Whew. This is all in alignment with what we talked about tonight. So that's going to be a really good Wednesday word. Catch it tomorrow, 6:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Be there, be square. If you watch it live, watch it live. We can always engage there. And then this Saturday, actually, I will have my April session of April episode of Financial Matters. We are going to be talking about debt to income, and that is Credit 101. And it's funny because in that, Glenn, when you talked earlier about being a man of your word, credibility, man, credibility. So that's going to be a very timely conversation. That will be this Saturday at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Other than that, that is everything that we have coming for the remainder of this week. And then we have one more month of content, and then we take a knee. I'm gonna decide if I'll figure out if we're gonna continue the men's circle. I don't feel like I want to take a knee from the men's circle in the month of June, in the month of June. So we'll have to figure that out, but we'll figure it out when we get there. But other than that, if you like this video, share it. If you share it, please like it. I cannot tell you how many men need to hear these types of conversations. Please, please spread the word. Invite them to attend, or just send them a clip of something. I don't care what you do. Send them something so that they can get this good word in the men's circles. But other than that, until the next time, I thank you guys for tuning in live. Until the next time, one love, peace, and God bless. Thanks for tuning in.